Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today we are diving into one of the most serious and closely watched questions in global politics right now. Iran vs USA, is a full-scale war coming next? Tensions between these two nations have shaped the Middle East for decades, but recent events have pushed fears to a new level, making many people wonder whether the world is standing on the edge of another major conflict. To understand what is happening today, we first need to look at the long and complicated history between Iran and the United States. Relations were not always hostile. Before 1979, Iran was actually a close ally of Washington, ruled by Shah Mohammad Reza Pahlavi, who was strongly supported by the US. That relationship collapsed overnight with the Iranian Revolution, which replaced the Shah with an Islamic republic led by Ayatollah Khomeini. The revolution completely changed Iran's political system and worldview. The new leadership saw the United States as a symbol of foreign interference and corruption, often calling it the Great Satan. This hostility was cemented by the U.S. embassy hostage crisis in Tehran, where American diplomats were held for 444 days. From that moment on, distrust and anger became permanent features of U.S.-Iran relations. Over the years, this rivalry has played out across the Middle East. The United States became deeply involved in the region through wars, alliances, and military bases, while Iran worked to expand its influence through ideology, diplomacy, and support for allied groups. This indirect struggle has often been described as a shadow war, fought without direct large-scale battles between the two countries. One of the biggest sources of tension has been Iran's nuclear program. Iran insists that its nuclear activities are for peaceful purposes, such as energy and medical research. The United States, along with its allies, has long feared that Iran is seeking to develop nuclear weapons, which would dramatically shift the balance of power in the Middle East. These concerns led to years of sanctions that severely damaged Iran's economy. In 2015, a major breakthrough came with the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action, commonly known as the Iran nuclear deal. Under this agreement, Iran agreed to limit its nuclear program in exchange for sanctions relief. Many hoped this would reduce tensions and open a new chapter. However, that hope did not last long. In 2018, the United States withdrew from the nuclear deal, arguing that it did not go far enough to stop Iran's regional activities and missile development. Sanctions were reimposed, and Iran's economy once again came under extreme pressure. From that point on, relations began to deteriorate rapidly. Iran responded by gradually reducing its compliance with the nuclear deal, increasing uranium enrichment and limiting international inspections. Each step raised alarms in Washington and among U.S. allies, who warned that Iran was moving closer to nuclear weapons capability. This cycle of action and reaction pushed both sides further apart. At the same time, the military dimension of the conflict became more visible. The United States maintains a strong military presence in the Middle East, with bases in countries like Iraq, Qatar, Bahrain, and Kuwait. Iran views this presence as a direct threat to its security and sovereignty. Iran, lacking the same conventional military power as the U.S., has relied on asymmetric strategies. These include ballistic missiles, drones, cyber capabilities, and support for allied groups across the region. These groups, often called proxies by the U.S., operate in places like Lebanon, Syria, Iraq, and Yemen. This is where the conflict becomes especially dangerous. Instead of direct battles between U.S. and Iranian forces, clashes often occur through these allied groups. Attacks on U.S. bases, shipping in the Gulf, or Israel can quickly escalate tensions, even if neither Washington nor Tehran officially claims responsibility. One of the most dramatic moments in recent years was the killing of Iranian General Qasem Soleimani in a U.S. drone strike in early 2020. Soleimani was a powerful figure, seen as the architect of Iran's regional strategy. His death shocked Iran and the world, bringing both countries closer to open war than they had been in decades. Iran responded by launching missile strikes on U.S. bases in Iraq. While no American soldiers were killed, many were injured, and the message was clear. Iran was willing to strike U.S. forces directly if provoked. For days, the world watched anxiously, expecting further escalation. Surprisingly, both sides stepped back from the brink. This moment revealed something important. Despite their harsh rhetoric, neither Iran nor the United States seemed eager for a full-scale war. The costs would be enormous, not just for them, but for the entire region and the global economy. A full-scale war would likely begin with massive airstrikes, missile attacks, and cyber operations. Iran could target U.S. bases, allies, and shipping routes like the Strait of Hormuz, through which a large portion of the world's oil supply passes. Even a short disruption there could send global energy prices soaring. The United States, with its superior military power, could inflict devastating damage on Iran's infrastructure, military sites, and economy. However, such a war would not be quick or clean. Iran's geography, population, and network of allies would make it a long and costly conflict. Another critical factor is domestic politics in both countries. In the United States, leaders must consider public opinion, Congress, and election cycles. After years of wars in Iraq and Afghanistan, there is strong resistance among Americans to another major Middle Eastern war. In Iran, the leadership also faces internal pressures. Economic hardship caused by sanctions has led to protests and dissatisfaction among the population. A war could unite people against an external enemy, but it could also worsen living conditions and threaten the stability of the regime. Regional actors play a major role in shaping the situation. Israel views Iran as its greatest security threat and has repeatedly warned that it will not allow Iran to acquire nuclear weapons. Saudi Arabia and other Gulf states fear Iran's influence, but also worry about becoming battlefields in a larger war. Russia and China add another layer of complexity. Both have strategic interests in Iran and oppose U.S. dominance in the region. While they may not want a war, their political and economic support gives Iran alternatives and reduces the effectiveness of Western pressure. Diplomacy has not completely disappeared. Even during periods of high tension, indirect talks, back-channel communications, and mediation by countries like Oman or Qatar have helped prevent misunderstandings from spiraling out of control. These quiet efforts rarely make headlines but are crucial for avoiding disaster. The media often frames the situation in dramatic terms, asking whether war is inevitable. While the risk is real, inevitability is a strong word. History shows that both Iran and the United States have repeatedly pulled back when escalation threatened to get out of hand. However, the danger lies in miscalculation. A single attack that kills a large number of civilians or soldiers could force leaders to respond more aggressively than they intend. In such moments, pride, public pressure, and fear can override careful decision-making. Technology has also changed the nature of conflict. Drones, cyber attacks, and precision missiles lower the threshold for action. Leaders may believe they can strike without triggering a full war, but each strike carries the risk of retaliation and escalation. Another issue is the nuclear timeline. If Iran continues to advance its nuclear program and reaches a point where it can quickly build a weapon, the pressure on the United States and Israel to act militarily will increase. This is often described as a red line that cannot be crossed. On the other hand, a military attack on Iran's nuclear facilities might only delay the program, not destroy it. It could also convince Iran that nuclear weapons are necessary for survival, pushing it to pursue them more aggressively once the immediate threat passes. Economic warfare remains a key tool for the United States. Sanctions aim to force Iran back to negotiations, but they also hurt ordinary Iranians and can harden anti-American sentiment. Whether sanctions lead to compromise or confrontation remains a deeply debated question. Public opinion inside Iran is complex. Many Iranians criticize their government and desire better relations with the West, but they also resent foreign pressure.